I think we've got a few folks with us already. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, they're eager beavers.
Yeah.
I see a monkey there. That might be a vervet monkey, is my guess.
Okay, so
hey man, I got to say your little video earlier. It was like you're like on the run in some cave in the middle of nowhere.
that was what I was hoping to impart. Yeah. It's and obviously we've got a few people here already. So hello, Velvet Monkey.
Vervet monkey, get it right. That's my client Josie. Josie in South Africa.
You've blown her cover now.
I have, but she's wide open anyway, so it's good. It's an awesome thing she's creating out there, which I'm proud to support her with. And is that David? I can see David there as well. Actually, that's what David. Yeah, David Collier. He's sort of been connected on Facebook for some time. He's very curious. Got a very curious mind. Very takes things in and considers things deeply.
Right on.
Great to have you here.
Now, in my haste, I realised I didn't get my earphones because I just got back from the conference literally 30 minutes ago. So I'm going to go and get those, and I'll be back with you.
Good man. So this is my second blab, actually. Second ever and second in a week. So, should be good. Rosie, welcome. That's my cohort Rosie there. Cohort, and we often have battles together. Rosie, you can feel free to say hi in the comments while waiting for Richie to get back. And tell me I'm talking bollocks. Oh, she's disappeared. I think I scared her off by announcing that she was here.
Now we're good.
There we go. Oh, there she is. Looks like some people are having some problems logging in because I see some people dropping in and out as if they're trying to log in.
Yeah, it happens. It seems to level out at the beginning. This happens, but it seems to level out along the way.
Okay.
So I was just about to say the reason I looked like I was in the witness protection program in that video, all blacked out, is because, and as you know, all of our lights are very dim in our house because we try and follow the gradient of the sun setting and not go too bright in the evenings because it helps with restful sleep and a healthy sleep cycle. The consequence of that is, of course, when you do video streams, you look like you're in the witness protection program. This is the brightest room I've got, so this is as good as we can get.
Yeah, I think there's this invention that came out. I don't know if you've heard of it. Called candles. Yeah.
Don't trust them.
By the way, man, you are rocking that beard.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. It's happened quick, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like 2 weeks. It's been like crazy.
It's as soon as my face starts to feel the cold, this happens. Right, man. Okay, so this is a wonderful occasion. So this is our first blab together. I think. Yeah, first blab.
Yeah, it's our second ever. So yeah, the first one was with Michael on Tuesday, and now this. So yeah.
And it's me passing the keys over to host these once a month. You're going to be hosting them, but for everyone else's benefit, we're going to be doing this every week on Sunday, 7:30 GMT PM. So we're going to be doing this every week. I'm going to be hosting one. David's going to be hosting one a month. Holistic health researcher Rich Enyon's going to be hosting one a month. And the wonderful Colin Smith is going to be hosting one a month as well. And he's going to be hosting one next week on the subject of active listening and deep connection, which really summarizes what that guy's message is. And he's just a beautiful guy who, I love spending time with. And, I'm sure you guys here, if you tune in every week, are going to really enjoy what we've got coming. What have we got coming tonight, David? You're the host.
Yeah, interesting. So you said you gave me the keys, and when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? With the red sports car. See what happens. See what happens by the end. But yeah, we've got what we're going to share today, and because it's been very present for me, the fact that on the 1st of November it was my 1 year anniversary of freedom from my job. It was the first day after I quit my job. and I celebrated by going rock climbing. And since then, of course, I've been checking in on, what I was experiencing at that time, when I'd gone into the unknown. So what perfect place to talk about today than my journey, really, from work a fucking drone, when I used to sit at my desk staring at a fucking computer screen, entering data, trying not to talk to anyone. And that was a good fucking day for me, to like entrepreneur who just, I just imagine something, I create it, and it brings in money, and it's fun, exciting, life is great. Whether I make money or don't make money, I don't give a shit. It's just living a great life with great people. It's like so far from where I was just a few years ago. It's insane. So what better thing to explore on my first LifeWell hosting blab?
Right on. And well, touching on that, you said something in a video the other day that I loved, and you do have this tendency to bring up just these unconventional insights, that are just a step to the right or left of the way we usually see things, which I love. And this one was how you framed financial freedom. And I'd like you to share that again, because that was wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. This is good, because so many of my clients, they want to make money, right? They want to be financially free. They want to travel the world. They want to be able, and financial freedom for them is having so much money that they just never have to think about bills or where it's coming from. So it might be like $1 million in the bank. It could be 500 grand a year coming in through what they're creating. And it's, and growing over years, so creating true financial freedom. The thing is, it isn't true financial freedom. That is just having more money. The mindset of needing it wouldn't have changed. And so true financial freedom, which is what I created for myself earlier this year, is not needing it. Is knowing that if I'm on the fucking streets, life is good and life is happy. And then any money that comes from that is a gift on top of that. It's like a bonus, So in January, for instance, when I had that conversation with my mortgage company saying, you got a week to pay the mortgage. If you can't pay it, we're going to take you to court for repossession. It's my worst fear. It's my family home. This is where I grew up. This is my dad and mum gave to me. I took it on when my dad got ill when I was like 2021 to actually help family. To then come to the point of actually losing the house is a big deal. It's my worst financial fear of leaving my job. But in that moment of knowing that, I didn't know how I was going to make any money in a week. I didn't. I was still coaching and trying to, but nothing was working. And then to actually know that it's going to happen, I was like, this is going to happen. So that means I have to go to court. I'm going to have these conversations with them. I'm going to be fucking honest about what's happened. But the reality is that we could go for repossession. In that, it's like something just shifted in me. That feeling here, that tension just burned, just disappeared. And I knew I'd be okay. I knew my mum would be okay. I knew my family would be okay. And it's so funny because I didn't know what would happen, but seriously, once I burned that out, then when I was coaching people and proposing, I had no attachment to them ever becoming a client or paying me money. Suddenly, I actually started getting some fucking money, which was a shock. And yeah, it's interesting. So because I didn't need it, that energy probably came across, and so I actually started coming into my world. So I paid that mortgage. And then gradually over time since then, it's, I've had months where I've made many thousands and months where I've made fuck all. And life is great either way because I'm coaching fucking amazing people. I've got amazing friends and beautiful family. So life is beautiful. So yeah, true financial freedom is not needing it, is not being frightened of being without. That's true financial freedom. And that is when there's no limits to what can be created.
In a sense, if you're not coming from that place of, psychological freedom, then it's kind of a house of cards that you build up with the more money, the more money, the more money, the more money. It's actually, you're not free from it. You've just created a scenario with which it looks kind of good. It looks kind of good here. If that changes, obviously, that can be panic stations for a lot of people, which is what we've seen over the years since the financial crash. I knew a very successful couple of brilliant entrepreneurs, and they were extraordinarily successful. The figures that were coming in with their business were just off the scale, but they had a house of cards, in many respects. And as soon as things got challenging, they just didn't have what they needed, the resources within themselves to meet it, and they went bankrupt. And these guys were taking, let me tell you, they were taking like footballers' weekly salaries, with their business. It was something else. So that's a nice insight. what you said about nearly losing your house, the mortgage thing, it reminded me of the conversation we had just the last time you were here with us, when I shared what I nearly did to mess that all up for you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was interesting. Yeah. Obviously, I had no idea that this was in your mind. Yeah, because you knew I was struggling financially, didn't you? And you knew that I was struggling to pay the mortgage, and what tell you what I was going to tell them. So what were you thinking of doing?
It's a really interesting phenomenon, this, because an entrepreneur's mind state is different than the normal mind state, and I liken it to an athlete's mind state. There's a lot of similarities there in regards to what failure is and how they approach challenges and things like that. Now, I love talking with my wife over this stuff, because in some places she finds it really odd mentality, but then I kind of give the context, what underpins why we communicate the way we do, why we treat each other the way we do. And it's actually, on the outset, it looks like callousness, it looks like less caring, but it's actually love. It's deep respect and appreciation and value. And an example of this was, to actually get a good example of this is I shared with Donna, because she was confused by this email I got from a friend who's another entrepreneur. He was meant to send me along some stock, some health food products, and basic communication was poor. They didn't arrive in time, and it kind of meant that we were kind of challenged about receiving this stuff and getting it to where it was meant to go, and it kind of put us out. And Donna kind of noticed. She said in these emails, because she kind of saw the correspondence I was going through, she said, it's weird, like he hasn't apologized like once. And I turned to her and I said, oh no, what he's doing is far, far better, because all of the language in the emails was about constructively solving the problem. And everything he was doing was to constructively solve the problem. He didn't need to apologize, and our normal social, niceties and our normal use of language would necessitate, I'm so sorry, and I'm this, and come from a place of remorse. Whereas in our world, what we want to hear is, how are we going to constructively move forward from now? That is, whatever energy is within the sorry, whatever, those kind of things, it's channeled into that. So it's also a different way of communicating, a different way of thinking, and different kinds of use of language as well. And so the other example, which is between you and I, and you didn't know about until last week, was that when David shared with me how challenging it was and how close he was not being able to pay his mortgage. So, wanting to support David and believing in him and what he has to offer in his work, my first impulse was to give him the money. And I began to write the message to let him know, hey man, I'm going to cover this for you for this month. And then I stopped, because I knew I was taking away from him the very experience that he not only needed, but was inviting, was creating, was asking for. And, on the outset, it's look, hey, you should give him that money. He's your friend and he might lose his house. And that looks like the compassionate thing to do and the loving thing to do. But knowing what David actually wants out of life and knowing what he wants to create, that was actually kind of a self-involved thing to do. If I'd have done it, it would have come from a place of wanting, my own feeling of wanting to help would have overridden what actually David, what you wanted, which was you wanted to create this off your own back and do this thing and make it happen. And when I shared that to you, the beautiful thing was you said, thank you so much for doing that for me, which seems like an odd conversation. But, when you understand where we're coming from, that was not giving you that money was a deep, it's a deep act of love.
Yeah, it's interesting because, it would have been a beautiful gift, and I would have been grateful, and I would have probably, I don't know actually, if I would have accepted or not. I honestly don't know. It depends on my mood at that moment, probably. But if I had have accepted it, sure, I would have paid that mortgage. But then what? What comes next, And so, yeah, I wouldn't have had the gift of having to face it in that exact moment. And then, like you say, just create my way out of it. And interestingly, because I had a coach throughout this time, right? The incredible John Morgan, and I was paying him. I could have paid my mortgage, but I chose to pay him instead. Why did I do that? Because my mortgage was keeping me stuck in this moment, right? Paying the mortgage, great, but nothing changes. Paying my coach, though, helps me dig deeper to create what I created. So without that, I wouldn't be where I am now. You know, without, and it's interesting because we have an interesting discussion, haven't we, recently about the need for struggle. And you were saying about how struggle's a douchebag, and one of our many philosophical disagreements. And whereas you're like, no, but it needs to be challenged, right? Challenge, not struggle. And although that is a great semantic difference, right? And I live through that now. I don't see anything as struggle anymore because I lived through that. However, I had to struggle because I was in a victim mindset at the time, and without experiencing that struggle, I wouldn't have been able to create the internal shifts that enable me to see every fucking thing in life as a challenge now, as an opportunity. So for me, the struggle was essential to that thing. You know, I love the diamond metaphor, which is about how a diamond's formed. You know, over a third of the life of the planet Earth, the rocks are under immense pressure, immense heat below the Earth's surface, and it's because of that immense pressure and immense heat that the rock was squeezed into that beautiful diamond that now, you know, costs, you know, thousands of pounds. And that's what I believe is true for me. And if you look at your life and your health issues you've had throughout your life, it's the same thing. You know, the struggle is how you've created the effortless, evil Buddha life that you are living now. In case you don't know, I call Richard the evil Buddha because he is, we have a very different style. Right? I'm all about loving fear, about going for it, about, you know, high energy and just going nuts. And Rich is very chilled. Life is effortless, peaceful, and full of love and simplicity, which is fantastic. Fucking hell, I'm just looking at the high tens. Wow, thank you. I'm winning.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Thank you. And so Richie has this very relaxed, effortless way of living. But I believe, and what I've seen from your story is it's having those early struggles in your life that has created that. And I see it again and again with the people I coach, with my friends who are doing incredible things. It's those moments of like immense struggle when you feel like a fucking victim and you feel like it's, you know, that is, you just can't cope. That's how you forge this powerful person that you become, that is able to become an entrepreneur, able to make money, create a wonderful, beautiful life. That's what I believe and what I've experienced. Now, what do you say to that, to Evil Buddha?
Give me a moment. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have these conversations, myself and David, we have these little semantical tugs of wars and philosophical. I call him I'm starting to refer to you as my philosophical nemesis / soulmate, which sums it up pretty well.
I agree with that, yeah.
What happens is from the different approaches, the vantage points me and David have through conversation, through the magnificent tool of conversation and listening, we end up exploring the commonality in what it is we're getting at. And, you know, I can see David's perspective over my experience of debilitating chronic ill health throughout my life, and the mental approach I have to life now, and similar challenges that I'm going through presently, actually. The thing is, my focus, where I'm looking at the footnotes, are, okay, what is it that's actually led to the transformation? What is it have I learnt that's meant that I get to experience what other people may experience as struggle as challenge? And the big difference, as you know, we talked about earlier when we were communicating about this, is that the idea of a challenge being an objective thing that's happening, and struggle being the way that we encounter it, the way that we interpret it in our inner world. So the difference between struggle are those two things. Struggle and challenge. I gave the example before of a climber. Is a brilliant climber, when they're climbing a wall, are they struggling or are they just climbing? You know, as they're climbing, their mind and their body is maneuvering with the challenges as they arise. They adapt and they learn from those challenges. But are they struggling? And if you were to ask an athlete, you know, what do you do with a challenge? Would they, would they reply, I struggle with it? You know, and of course they wouldn't. They'd reply, I overcome it. I traverse it. I transcend it. All those things. And this, likewise, a prolific and effective entrepreneur, someone that's skilled in life, would have the same kind of answers. That said, the context David has given is absolutely right. And I'm just going to carry on talking until my high tens get past yours. What David's saying is absolutely right. There would have been times when I struggled with my illnesses, with my pain as a child, very, very young. There were times I struggled. The times that I overcame the challenges were when I surrendered from that struggle in my own inner world, because if I'd have kept on doing that, I wouldn't have survived. I really wouldn't have. I wouldn't have had the resources I needed to overcome those challenges, to stay switched on, to educate myself, to further ease my suffering and transform my health in later life. I wouldn't have been able to do that. My computer is threatening to shut down on me for one moment. That means, there we go, my plug's on there. Where was I? Thread losing. Okay. So the difference is between the struggle and the challenge is really the way we engage with it. And once you realize that it is just challenge and the struggle is internally created, it liberates you to be able to traverse challenges in this effortless way. In this way, when we take, I'm looking at stairs right now, so here's the analogy that's going to come. When we walk up these steps and these stairs, there's, as I put my foot on the stairs, I'm applying resistance, and the step is meeting my resistance with resistance. And to gain momentum, I have to traverse that resistance. I have to apply energy, and I have to face that resistance on the steps. Now, I just keep walking to get up those steps. I may come to a point when I stop. And I could easily convince myself, if I was to go within my inner anxieties, that this step looks a bit higher than the other ones. I don't really like the look of this step. I don't think I'm up to this step. I may even kick the step, hurt my foot, blame the step. And all of these things might go on where all I need to do is take the step and carry on taking the steps. I don't need to tie myself in knots with that kind of inner gymnastics. Does that mean that's how I always feel? No, but it's how I mostly feel, and that works kind of well. In my personal life, as David knows, my wife struggled with postnatal anxiety and depression for a period of about 5 years. That was an incredibly challenging time. And was I always happy around that time? No. And I'm not talking about always being happy. I'm just talking about being switched on to what mental energy I'm putting on top of this situation. That's what I'm talking about. Because if I'd have had a mental, if I'd have cultivated the idea of struggle over those 5 years, I wouldn't have made it. Wouldn't have been able to help her. Wouldn't have got past it. And whenever I caught myself in a dynamic of inner struggle, I just had to let go of that shit. So,
yeah, an interesting point you raise is about surrender, which another word for that could be acceptance. And for me, what I found is that there's no way around the fact that when you experience things for the first time, they are going to feel like struggles. You can't, in my experience, make the leap from everything's great in life, this shit comes up, suddenly it's a challenge only. I mean, I don't see that. If you look at entrepreneurs around the world, you look at some of the best top guys, if you look at their stories, generally there's been a death in the family. They've had to look after themselves from a young age. There's something that's happened young, which has forged this desire and this ability to create beyond their circumstances. Time and time again, they've had come from council estates and upbringings that actually some of them are quite horrendous upbringings they've come from, but they've pushed beyond all that. I mean, Duncan Bannatyne's famous for his sister died, and then it's from that place that he started to create the ice cream business, which then obviously launched his career as this entrepreneur now. And in fact, those guys on the Dragon's Den, whatever you think of them personally, each one of them says in interviews and things that most of them lost it all at some point and got it back again. Lost all their money, lost all of their trappings of success and got it back. How have they done that? They've done that because they've struggled. They've then learnt from that struggle. And then, like you say, that struggle, it's no longer becomes a struggle anymore. It just becomes part of a life. In fact, it's what forges them, forges the business to be strong, successful, and resilient. And we're also talking resilience here, aren't we? In fact, in business a lot these days, they talk about mental toughness. Now, I used to poo-poo that idea. I was like, you don't need to be mentally tough, because you kind of don't, and yet you do. It's an interesting thing, because when I coach someone, I could be coaching them, and it just takes one little insight. Like you said, one thing of just looking from this little distance, and everything changes for them, right? But there is a thing about continuously attacking something or going for something, going through the fire and forging yourself to be almost like fire retardant, so that nothing can ever touch you again, even death, even illness, even, anything that happens in life just becomes part of the incredible life that we're living, which enables us to create anything, deep, loving connections, successful businesses, money, it all comes from that place. But there is a moment where it has to go, like you said, from the perception of it as being a struggle to this is actually now surrendering. Like when I surrendered to the fact that I could lose my house, right? In that moment, it was full acceptance of this is probably going to happen, and I'm just going to have to deal with it. And in that moment, I surrendered to the fact that I would lose it. I would, it could be a tough few, very, very tough few months for me and my family. And then I was okay. And it's from that place of surrender and acceptance that I was able to create some fucking amazing things, which has obviously led us to this conversation right here.
It's and this is where we're coming to, and this is where we always end up coming to this place. It's what serves you, who you are, when you are, where you are then. It's basically it's all about transmuting and channeling. And a few things you said. The one, just coming back to the idea of struggle one more time. If your perception of struggle or challenge serves you in that, when a struggle comes up, and this is the interesting thing, Dave, and I'm going to ask you about this. If you're going through this a lot and you get excited by the idea of struggle, you may have missed the fact that when the struggle comes up, you're not struggling anymore. You're excited. Yes. You may still call it struggle. You may still see it in those words, but what the experience is coming is excitement, and that might come earlier and earlier and earlier until it comes instantly. And that's what's happening. The thing I think we need to be aware of, and I think people need to be aware of, is the story of struggle and creating that story of struggle in a way that invites unnecessary struggling and repeats the cycle of co-creating in the world around you the same stories in your life to overcome. You don't need to be doing that because, we want to honor this glorious impulse of evolution and expansion, which means that we don't want to keep living the same thing over and over again. We want to move forward into new challenges. And in those new challenges, like you say, the inner world of struggle might spike up again. And you can take yourself forward from then as well, hopefully. And the other thing I want to just look at is the idea of resilience, which you brought up. And these are the other two ways that we look at things. You'd probably look at things with a place of resilience, and I'd look at them from this place of freedom. And yet, what I think generally happens with us, David, I don't know if you agree or not, but we have an 80-20 thing going on, and we talk about our 80 a lot. But when we get together, we end up having to talk about each other's 20. So I look at resilience. And I think, okay, resilience is good. Resilience is great, obviously. But resilience necessitates something to be resilient against. It necessitates something to be resisted, because of the derivative of the word being resisted. It necessitates that. Is that a story we're creating and inviting? In which case, are we robbing ourselves of freedom? Now, freedom is a different thing from resilience. Freedom allows us to move beyond the challenges we've already faced. That's where the freedom comes in. And so this is the thing I'd like to ensure there's an awareness of, that in the reverence of struggle, that we're not actually unnecessarily repeating the cycles of struggle in our lives, and to actually allow the possibility of freedom. And this come up for me just the other week, talking about, with our friend Michael Hilton about addiction. There's a big belief system in the world of coming over addictions and AA and all that stuff, which is very effective and it works for many, many people. But there's this idea of once you're an addict, you're always an addict. One day at a time, these kind of things.
Yeah.
And those
Toxic
words and those belief systems don't leave the room for the possibility of freedom. Now, I am free from some extraordinary addictions. I dabbled in a lot of them, and I went full throttle. I mean, I was stealing cider from the shops when I was 10 years old to get drunk. That's how ferocious I enjoyed just messing around with how I felt. And cocaine, gambling, a lot of other things. And I'm free of them completely, utterly free. I wouldn't be free of those if I still championed these ideas, these beliefs that I once an addict, always an addict, one day at a time. I don't even perceive myself of having been an addict. I just made choices at the time, and I kept making them over and over again. And then I decided to make different choices. So that's the thing I just want to invite into the conversation, although I think what you say is beautiful as ever. And I'm absolutely with you, and it's a part of my experience. I also want to make sure that we have enough awareness over it, that we're not revering those things so much that we're kind of holding ourselves back from being even more incredible, creating even more from a place of freedom. No,
I agree with you. For me, struggle is part of the path. It's not the path. It's just an essential. It's like the baby steps. It's the baby falling on its belly as it tries to stand up. For me, but once you can stand, then there's no more struggle. Then it's about. Then it becomes like, how do I climb over this obstacle? That's the kind of way I see it. Now, there is an interesting thing that's happened. Because freedom is, in fact, interestingly, I named last year, from the 1st of November last year to the 1st of November this year, my year of freedom.
Not the year of struggle.
No, it was the year of freedom. The year before was the year of struggle. I didn't name it that, but it fucking was. The year of freedom, but obviously there was struggle within that. And for me, it was freedom from a relationship which was bad for both of us. It was, and all the energies around that. The job that I didn't want that for a company that didn't give a fuck about me or my family or anything about the people that worked for them. It was freedom financially, which I created through facing my worst fears of losing everything. Freedom in myself, like you say, it's a freedom to realize that you can just choose. It's about, am I exercising choice here, or am I a victim of circumstance? Now, there's a funny thing that's happened because by the way, I'm a person who, for most of my life, 34 years really, was stuck. Even though I was on a personal development journey for like a few years, I was still stuck. I was in the same place of employment for 17 years. Can you imagine driving the same journey, the same building, with the same boss for 17 years? That was what I did. And to think that I could ever get through that, I was not a person who sought out challenge or struggle or whatever you may want to call it. I didn't seek out these things. I, in fact, kept myself as stuck as I possibly could in a little bubble is the way I lived for most of it. Now, obviously, the past 2 years has been when I've just cranked it up to a massive degree. It was actually 6 months after my dad died. I'd love to have come to this before then, but I didn't. So 6 months after, it was like, right, I want to create my way out now. What do I do? And that's when I began this path. And that involved a lot of challenge, a lot of putting myself out there, a lot of failing, hugely failing again and again and again, and making loads and loads of mistakes. And interestingly, it's when this resilience that I'm saying to you, it's like this, not struggle, but there has to be some, for me, the resistance is the fun. I fucking love it. When things are tough, I love it. It's exciting to me. It's like I can't wait for it. Now, this is a problem for me. I'm not totally free here because earlier in the year, I decided in January, actually on New Year's Eve with a friend of mine, we're like, what can we do? What do we want to create this year? And I was like, I said, I come up with astronauts. I want to coach an astronaut, right? I think that'd be fucking awesome. Someone who's going out and just testing the limits of human potential. I fucking love that. So then I started to, it was just a crazy idea at the time. A couple of days later, though, it wouldn't go away from me, right? It was nagging. And so I started to think, what can I actually do to bring them into my world? And I'm on LinkedIn. I started just seeing, am I connected to any? Oh, actually, I am by like 2 or 3 people. So I started to reach out. I created loads of connections with astronauts. And I began having conversations with astronauts. People who've been up there, people who are on their way there. You know, loads of different people at NASA, at SpaceX. You know, I was creating a world within like a couple of weeks. Then I got bored. It was like it was just too easy. I'm like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't coaching any astronauts really, but how would I coach an astronaut? Well, I create a world filled with them. They know what I do. I just be who I am, and I know it would naturally happen because that's just that's the way it works. And because it happened so fast, I lost interest completely. I stopped talking to them, and I stopped bothering. I haven't bothered since because of that, because it was too easy. And even recently, right, I decided that I wanted to do a bungee jump because I'd never done one. I bottled it when I was like 18 years old. And I'm like, do you know what? I spoke to a friend. She's like, why the fuck can't you just do it then? I'm like, do you know what? Okay, I will. But for me, I can't just do a bungee jump. I'm like, how can I make it more better? So I'm like, okay, let's make it. What metaphor could I create around this? And I'm like, for me, I'm at a stage in my life again where I'm making a leap. I'm making the change in my life. So I'm like, great. Let's create a day called Taking the Leap, where it involves deep coaching. And at the end of that, during the middle of the day, we take a leap off a bungee. And at the end, then we create a strategy for the future. And then I can bring some people in it. So I imagined it. I thought this would be great. I'd love to lead a small group of people to come on this with me. So then at 10 o'clock at night, I created it. I wrote it, put it out on Facebook. Within a few days, I had like people wanting to be part of it, right? It was all there ready to go. Happened so fast. I just took my foot off the gas again. I'm like, oh shit, it just happened too quick. So I still, weeks later, haven't actually arranged this fucking thing because it was too easy. That's the problem for me with effortlessness. I don't enjoy it. I enjoy it. Now I don't see it as struggle, but there has to be some like path that I'm like I have to. It's like there has to be a fucking mountain for me to climb. And so for me, struggle definitely not, but there has to be challenge for it to be exciting. It's one of my core values, I guess. Now is it has to be challenging. It has to be something that, because also it's like if it's effortless, for me, what's the point? That's where I am with that.
You have to be inspired. You have to be inspired, and it's that which inspires you. But again, I just give it might be a semantical thing, but I give the example of the wall climber again. He's challenged. That is exciting. That is, I mean, you've been wall climbing recently, right? I used to do it and loved it, and it's so much fun. And it's being fully and utterly engaged with an ongoing and unfolding challenge. That's what it is. I mean, when you're experiencing things getting too easy, and you're not having to, again, if your mind and body isn't having to maneuver and adapt and traverse, this is what we are. If a human animal is nothing else, we are a genius of adaptation, and that's how we've evolved to the point we are. We are the singularly most adaptable mammal. We're extraordinary in that way. So this is woven into us, really, to have that. This is why routine experiences are a recipe for depression and human illness. We need it's when we go into fresh environments and we travel and we do these things that we feel most inspired and most connected with really who we are authentically, and we feel well and we feel healthy and all of those things. That's expressing ourselves in the way we should be. We should be doing that. Soon as something looks like it's a routine, soon as something looks like it's a little bit it's not that, well, we're not having to engage with it moment to moment. We're just going through emotion. That's what's going to unfold. Definitely, I'm with you completely there.
Cool.
Go on. No, I've got something else to come back to, but you go on.
No, I was just going to say, because 17 years the same place of employment, I did change roles, but just by default, really. But essentially, it was Groundhog Day, and I lived in Groundhog Day, and it wasn't great. I didn't feel great doing it, but it was what I did. And now it's the opposite. The entrepreneurial mindset is just like, what's next? What can I create from this place? How can I make this better? And that's like deeply ingrained now. It's like I do talks, as you know, obviously, since I've done them for you, right? And I could not do the same talk twice. It would bore the fuck out of me. Now, I have done a talk. I do the same title talks, like I did one called How to Create Deep Connections and Find Your People. Did it first with Rosie, my partner in crime, who's on this call somewhere, Rosie Allen, who's awesome. Then I did it on my own at Interesting Talks, and then I did it again at Interesting Talks just a couple of weeks ago. But it's brand new, you know, different exercises, and also I'm just creating it on the spot. And as you know, in Bristol Veg Fest, you know, for the LifeWell Hub, you know, I mean, you and I both did 3 talks that weekend, didn't we?
Yeah.
I took a leaf out of your book because, again, you would just show up and speak, right? And that was the first weekend where every single time I just showed up and spoke. I didn't know what I was going to speak about. I had a title and a rough description, but I made it up on the spot. And so for me, difference is it, really. Difference and creation. That's like the entrepreneurial, you know, juice for me. So that's definitely like one of the biggest shifts from when I used to work, you know, at the same place of employment to becoming an entrepreneur, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, right on, man. This comes up a lot with other speakers, other public speakers, and we speak about this a lot. Some speakers do. They put together their polished presentations, and that's a part of something that they're brilliant at. You know, I've never been one to be able to do that. I remember when my presentation evolved to a point where suddenly, I'm just going to give this perfect presentation now that I gave last time. And the first time I did that, I actually gave the same presentation as I gave the time before. I wasn't there. I just wasn't there in the same way. And it didn't carry the same thing for me at all. And consequently, I didn't engage with people the same way either. And when you have, you know, this is something you can fall into. And again, this is something that you apply to life in general and entrepreneurism. When you have a plan and it's kind of rigid, it closes yourself off from opportunities. You know, it's like we were talking about the other day, the mentality of being an expert prevents you from being able to learn something new because you're coming to situations like, I'm the expert. Well, how are you going to learn from the people around you if you think you're the expert? You know, you can't do that. So you have to if you catch yourself doing that, and I shared with you when I kind of caught myself doing that with something, and I nearly thought I was an expert then for a moment. How am I going to learn, you know, from myself, from my experience, from other people? It won't happen. You're robbing yourself of growth. And, you know, likewise, if you've got this plan, right, okay, I'm going to do this and you do it in this way, but something happens in your day which creates a flow of thought and creativity. And you could bring that to that talk. You could bring that to that. But you've got a plan. So you go, I best not go with that because I don't know what's going to happen. That's a risk. I'll stick with the plan. And you're robbing yourself of magic because the magic really comes in a room full of people. Something's come to you that day and it's inspired you, and you turn up and you just start coming from that space of whatever it is that's inspired you that day, or whatever insight you had. And then the magic happens. Why? Because you are just at your peak. You're at your peak of creativity in that moment, and people are connecting with that, and they meet you there, and that inspires them, and it's beautiful, and it's a wonderful thing to do. There's one big element. I mean, we've covered the challenge element and struggle and these kind of things. There's one big element I think if we're going to honor this subject of entrepreneurism and success. And that's our relationship with failure. We both, this is funny, Donnie will tell you this, that when I was watching your blab with Michael a couple of weeks after I had the time with Michael, he asked me the question, what's your biggest failure? And I answered him. And then a couple of weeks later, he asked you that question. And I sat here and Donna was just to the side of me. And you started to go, okay, what's my biggest failure? And I turned to him and I go, he's actually thinking about it. Right now, he's thinking there's such a thing as failure, right in this moment. And then you tried to, then you caught yourself, and I said, "That's my boy."
No, I'll tell you what it was actually. He asked me the question, "What's your biggest failure?" And because I don't live in a world where that exists for me anymore, it was like to be honest, the question threw me because I'm like, how do I step back into the world where that exists? I had to do that. I had to pretend I wasn't me anymore. Go back to who I used to be. That's what I was doing. That's what I was actually going through my mind. So that's why I was struggling with that question so much.
So what's the real answer to that question? What is failure to you?
Failure to me, I mean, it's just experience. It's just, that's it. It's experience, right? Something doesn't work. Guess what? What do I learn? In fact, when you were speaking earlier, I was thinking one of the biggest shifts for me going from a worker drone to entrepreneur is a learning mindset. It is my ability to take a lesson from every experience of my life, going back to from my earliest memories. And that's one of the things I've done as a coach. Part of my journey is to go back and extract the lessons from my life. So for me, like you said about the failure thing, like one of these questions was about, could you go back in time and change something? What would you go back in time and change? And it was very difficult for me to even answer that question, because everything in my life, that even the shit stuff, the years of social anxiety when I was ostracized, of having no friends, of feeling isolated and alone, the times when I was addicted to drugs and I actually thought I was going to kill myself just from smoking myself to death because I didn't have the fucking ability to just stop smoking, all of that stuff, if I had to change any of that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have created what I have in this moment. So failure to me is just experience. It's just life. It's just I'll tell you what, that didn't work. Now what can I take from that and apply here? That's it, and now if I haven't failed this week, I haven't tried hard enough.
Nice.
That's how I look at it now. Yeah. What about you?
Well, there's actually a Chinese proverb which summarizes it beautifully, which is if something has been learned, there has been no mistake. And Michael asked me the same question about failure, and it was difficult as well. You get caught in your mind because no, there is no failure. Again, coming back to an athlete's perspective, you think of what failure means to someone that bench presses, who bodybuilds and trains their body. Failure is a place you get to because of the effort and energy you've put in. Failure is welcome. Failure is something you want to reach because it means you've put everything in. And you will build and grow based on reaching failure, which means not being able to lift one more thing. That's what it means in those terms. And likewise, when an entrepreneurial mindset, failure is not the same thing as it would be. It is not something that would even make you contemplate giving up. Nothing like that happens when the idea of something's not gone to plan, or a challenge looks like it's insurmountable. You don't get the pang of, oh no, I should give up, and all the fears and all that kind of stuff. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to create a successful life for yourself, if you're going to be excellent and magnificent at this or that, your relationship with failure has to become something completely different, and that's to see it as a growing experience, as an actual inevitable, innate part of success. Not actually just not the opposite of success, a part of success. And I gave the example to Michael the other week, and I'll give it again, is the Wellbeing Now seminar is the perfect example of a success that could have looked like a failure. Now, the first seminar we put on, we had to cancel because of all sorts of problems. Was that a failure? Well, no, because it was a path to the next event that I put on. And the next event that I put on was beautiful and stunning. Did we make any money? No, I lost thousands. Was it a failure? Absolutely not, because it was beautiful and wonderful. And guess what? There's another event coming, and it's going to be 10 times bigger and better than the one we did before. It's just, that's how it works. And you have to liberate yourself from this illusion that failure is something to be avoided. The mistakes are something to be, you don't want to miss. You want to make as many as possible, because that means you're learning, you're growing, you're moving forward towards that place of excellence that you want to occupy, or you want to achieve that goal, whatever it is. Don't think there's not going to be things that look like it's going to go wrong along the way. It's always going to happen. But again, we have this idea between struggle and challenge, and how we're facing it and we're feeling it. What's our emotional experience of the idea of something going wrong? Is it, are we coming from a place of acceptance or excitement? Those are two very healthy ways to approach it. We're coming from a place of, fear, anxiety, depression, and the negative self-talk. And certainly liberate ourselves from the idea of what will other people think if I fail. Forget that forever. That's one thing we don't need on any level. Liberating yourself from the inner anxieties of what other people feel and think about, what you're doing. It's just that's a beautiful thing that we have to do as we're going forward. So that's what I have to share.
There is a small piece around that as well, because it's not like I've changed. I don't use the word failure anymore, because that's the thing. When I did NLP training many years ago, which I've now left that kind of methodology behind, but when I used to do NLP, there's a famous phrase which is, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And as an NLP master practitioner, I was walking around all proud of myself. And when I'd see someone, you know, like I'd be training like some other NLPers, right? The practitioners, I'd be coaching them, and I'd be like, "There's no failure, there's only feedback," you know, all cocky like. But guess what happened when I failed? It didn't feel like feedback to me. It felt like fucking failure. It felt horrible, right? So it's just like there's a thing that happens when you try and reframe it. You know, it's actually essential part. It's not just you know, it's essential for what you want to create. Failure, you know, and don't try and change it or, you know, semantically alter it. Just live through that thing. It's like you said. I used to think that failure was like when I fail, it's like I've taken a step back, and that, you know, my success is much further away. It's how I used to believe. But then of course through experience, through coaching and all sorts of things, I realised that there's success, right? Or what my imagination of what success looks like is over there. Here's failure. Here's fucking it. The quicker I can fail, the faster more I can fail, the quicker I get to where I choose to be.
Right on.
And it's a fucking beautiful place. And as you said, we are both now in a place where there's nothing that will stop us, right? There's nothing that would ever make us go, I'm going to give up now. It's just, okay, maybe I'll sidestep this, or I'll step over that, or there's that wall there. Let me just climb over it quickly, so I can keep going. And that works, like you said, in every part of our life, whether it be a financial success, whether it just be creating a beautiful connected life with people you love.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, should we have a look at us over on this right hand side to see if we've had any questions or feedback we need to address before we sign off tonight?
Cool.
Okay.
So,
right, I'm going all the way. Wow, there's a lot. Okay.
We'll definitely scroll up, do we?
Yeah, we scroll up. Okay, well. Okay, hey guys. Hey,
Noah.
We have a question here. Okay. Oh, this is great. Questions are marked with a Q. I know here in the US, that's a huge gender thing in our culture. Do you find the I'm sorry's being an expected gender issue there? I don't. I'm going to field first. I don't see it as a gender issue, but I see it as a social issue. I see, you know, the part of our relationship dynamics, our dysfunctional relationship dynamics as a culture, to always put this burden of expectation on other people. You know, as it's expected, because think about it, as children, if you did something that was perceived to be wrong, you were told forcibly to say sorry, and if you didn't do that, there'd be big consequences. You know, that's one thing I've tried to avoid as a father. Is I've never actually ever once instructed my daughter to say sorry or please and thank you. What I've done is I've apologized to her if I get things wrong, if I have fallen short in my own, you know, perception. I will let her know. I'm like, you know what, honey, sorry, I didn't listen as good as I could then. And by showing that example, guess what? She says sorry, please, and thank you more than other kids, right? But we most likely were forced into a situation of sorry. So something we have an expectation of to help us feel at ease. So if something's got us feeling at odds, if someone's done something like earlier, the example I gave, someone has made a mistake. It's their fault. They're to blame. So you feel this about it and uncomfortable. So they need to say sorry. You know, so that feeling can go away, you know, and that's the kind of way we've been living things. That's the issue as I see it myself. I don't see it as a gender issue. I'm not sure where you're coming from there exactly, but it's certainly a social issue we can just escape from. And again, when you're escaping from these things, the social norms, do it unapologetically. You just do it with absolute embodied confidence with the whole thing. Stop living down to the expectations of social norms, because you know, like David, it's a perfect example. If someone comes and attacks him with small talk, he will tell them. He will tell them. Some of us would just kind of on and go for the motions a little bit. David won't. David will like, I'm not actually interested in this, and he'll move on with his life. And you know, there's certainly something to be said from that.
I do it with love though. Because because realistically, someone's doing that, they don't really want to be talking about that either. They're doing it because they think they should, or they're trying to, you know, it's actually, again, sometimes saying something directly that actually may hurt them in this moment is the best thing that can happen to that person. Because maybe the next time they go up to someone, instead of just saying some bullshit that they don't really care about, they'll say something that actually matters. So yeah, sorry, yeah, definitely. That's one word I'm burning out more. I still say it sometimes too much, because it's still ingrained a little bit. Sometimes I'll say it, and then I'm like, well, it's only good if I'm doing something about it, right? Otherwise, it's just a word, and the energy around that word can be quite negative. So yeah,
I like the Spanish. The Spanish for sorry is lo siento, but the literal translation is I feel it, and I really like that. I feel it. It's basically saying I care.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like imparting that I care. I like imparting that if someone has, because I'm not responsible for other people's feelings, I'm not, because I can't, with my Jedi powers, make them feel things. I am responsible for how I treat people. And if I've done something that I don't think, I then afterwards think, you know what, I could have done that, but I could have communicated that in a better way. I will say that I will apologize. I say, the words I often use is that wasn't my intention. And that's the best way I can communicate that I am coming from a place where, you know what, I'm acknowledging that I could have done better there, because that wasn't my intention to have you, feel that way after whatever I've said and done. Right now I'm getting a lot of high tens from my wife, and
hey Donna,
we come into.
Oh, Amelie's been waving at us apparently. Hi Amelie.
Yeah, I noticed that. I gave her a wave earlier.
Oh.
She actually came in the door and waved at me earlier as well, and I gave her a little kiss. But when me and Donna got together, she would say sorry every other sentence, and I'd stop her. I'd say, "What are you saying sorry for?" She said, "I don't know." She just felt like, because of things that had gone on for her and her upbringing and all those kind of things, sorry was her place she was coming from. Like, she just had to be sorry for being alive, and we over a period of time, dropped all of that, because it can be a place of just feeling anxiously bad and not wanting other people to be judging you and all those kind of things. So it's indicative, it's representative of a lack of self-esteem, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time. So what else have we got here? Have you noticed?
I see David has said something here. He says, it may not be your intention, but your mere presence impacts the way people feel. And I agree with you, that's true, but it's not our responsibility how people feel in our presence. We just get to be who we are. And as long as you don't don't intend to hurt anyone, then just be true to yourself is the best thing you can ever do. Anyone who's in your presence, you give them the gift then of being themselves, which is which is probably what I do with most of my clients. Actually, it's removing the layers of bullshit they put on themselves over the years, so they can actually just be who they truly are, doing what they truly want.
And there's a way of seeing this, this idea of, I actually see it. I don't see it as a positive thing, feeling very bad about things when you've upset people. And the reason being is I don't believe I have that power over somebody else. I have more respect for their sovereignty as a human being than to think that I can somehow dominate their feeling experience. I can't do that. And that isn't from a place of anything other than I truly respect them as an empowered human being. And I feel that within myself too. And I don't want to go in assuming, because I feel this way and I don't feel like I need other people to say sorry in order to relieve feelings within me or anything like that. I do, and the people in my life, I do want people that take responsibility for who they are and what they do and how they impact people. I do want that. But at the same time, I think there's another level here of acknowledging and respecting people, which means you don't kind of see them as vulnerable to you in that way, and to see them as weak. And I don't believe in walking on eggshells either. I don't, even though a lot of my views are very liberal and are very on the left wing of things when it comes to my political kind of compass. I don't believe in walking on eggshells. I believe in talking about things and having faith that people's limbs won't fall off just because you've said an idea they don't like. I believe that we have more going on that. And if that is happening for someone, it's no bad thing that you're triggering it off, because it needs to be in their experience for them to see it and go beyond it, because there's so much more within us than walking around being beholden to what other people say and what other people think. That's not a place that I see us as a human species occupying in a healthy way. I think we need to go beyond it. And yeah.
But that's a really interesting point, because actually the times when things do piss me off, when I am the most frustrated, or I look at someone and they wind me up and I'm like, it's like I'm offended, there's something in me that's creating that. It's like, what is it about them, about what they've said, that is true for me here that I need to deal with, you know? And so that's how I go through it. It's you know, don't get me wrong, people wind me up sometimes, but you know, that's always because of me. It's never because of them, ever. You know, nobody else has any power over me, and I don't have any power over anyone else. You know, we influence the people in our lives, and we can choose to do so positively by living the best life we can. But anytime they're upset, I'm upset, that's all down to us, isn't it? To who's creating the upset inside of themselves.
And, you know, it's the difference again. It's the difference between blame and responsibility. I don't want to be blame centric. Blame and responsibility can, again, in our language, be used in place of each other, but they're two distinct things. And responsibility, and I love the word responsibility. I remember when I first realized what the word meant. Responsibility is the ability to respond. Oh my goodness, what an empowering concept, what an empowering word. Because when you live with responsibility and you take responsibility and you have that sovereignty in your own life, you have the ability to respond. You have the ability to change circumstances, to influence them, to change yourself. Without responsibility, without taking responsibility, you don't have the ability to respond. And blame is more of a place where you lack the ability to create positive change around you. It becomes very, it's a very destructive, stagnant place, you know, and you're forever looking for someone else to take it. Responsibility, I want it. Whereas blame centricity, you want someone else to have it. Okay, and that's the difference between self-empowerment and self-actualization and living in a victim mindset.
Actually, just it's an interesting point about where I used to work. They were very much a blame culture. It was like, who's done it wrong? Who can be punished? Who's done this? You know. And so what happened? Created a culture of, it wasn't me, it was them. Or, you know, and there was like people like, no one wants to touch this thing, right? When actually, the thing is, it doesn't have to be your fault that it happened. But when you step up and go, I'm going to deal with this, let me handle this, you know, that is like a position of power to come into.
You want that. You want that.
Yes.
You want that.
Definitely.
You know, and again, it's counterintuitive. You want that. That gives you all the power to create all the change you want in yourself and around yourself. Right on.
Yes. Be a true creator in life, in every moment. Yeah, right. Responsibility is at the core of it.
Right on, brother. Well,
good man. Well, I think we're at the hour mark, aren't we?
We're cool. Hey, man, thank you. You now have the keys once a month to the LifeWell Blab.
You've no idea what you've just done, but we'll see what I do next month with it.
Yeah, and you know, thanks to everyone that's been here and stayed with us and engaged with us over the course of this. It's such a joy. And, you know, we're going to be doing this. One of us is going to be doing this every week, every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. GMT. We're going to be having these shows. Myself and David will be hosting some of them, and some other brilliant people are going to be hosting the others. And we're going to be having guests on sometimes. Tell us where you want us to go. You know, make comments. Let us know, not just throughout the course of this, but afterwards. On the LifeWell Wellbeing Facebook page, we'll be posting the events. Let us know then this, you know, whatever you liked, whatever you want to hear more of, wherever you want to go, we will take it. So this can be something that really serves you guys that are joining us for it. And we really want this to be something that does. I can't tell you how much being able to do this on this platform, and people just being able to tune in, you know, at their will and their leisure and join us, and us be able to share and be helpful in this way. It's got us all pretty excited. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'd love you to keep joining us and being here with us as we evolve it.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right on. Okay. Thanks, man.
Okay, man. Now, how do I say goodbye to this thing? How do I end it?
The cross in the top right.
Cross in the top right. Good man. Okay. Thank you, guys. Again, post any questions that you've got, any challenges that you want us to help overcome, and we'll be happy to bring that into the next one. So